Hello, my name is Abby Rubinstein. I'm here from Earthjustice, and with me is Ms. Weni Bagama from the Nagbe community in Panama, and I'm going to translate for her.
Okay, thank you, please.
Buenas tardes, no sé, tarde digo yo. Mi nombre es Weni Bagama, vengo de la comunidad de Quien, comarca Nuevo.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure it's exactly afternoon, but good afternoon. That's what she said. My name is Weni Bagama. I'm here from the Nagbe community from Quien, which is part of the Nagbe indigenous territory in Panama.
Perdón. Mi presencia aquí es porque soy afectada directo del proyecto hidroeléctrico Barro Blanco. Este proyecto tiene, según el gerente Aldo López, tiene la certificación de MDL.
I'm here because I am affected directly by the Barro Blanco hydroelectric project. It is registered under the CDM.
Este proyecto se está construyendo y en este momento ya le impide, se están violando la libertad de tránsito de nuestra comunidad.
This project is under construction and already is impeding access, free access of the community to cross the river.
También se viola nuestra libertad cultural.
It's also violating our right to culture.
También se viola nuestra libertad territorial.
And also our right to our territories.
También se está violando la tranquilidad social de nuestra comunidad, niños, mujeres, hombres y ancianos.
And it's also interfering with our leisure time, with our family, our quality time with our family, our children, and women time with their children.
O sea, después de haber dado el permiso y todo de este proyecto, ahora que nos causa esta molestia, ¿quién se hace responsable? ¿Dónde están las reglas? ¿Qué se va a hacer? ¿O qué puedo hacer? ¿Qué va a hacer la comunidad para volver su tranquilidad que le ha quitado este proyecto?
No sé si tengo todo, entonces voy a intentar. So there are these violations happening, and I'm trying to find out what my options are, because this is I want to get the peace and quiet back in my communities, and this is already underway. So please tell me what I can do.
Para nosotros esto es incómodo porque se sabe bien a nivel del mundo que el pueblo indígena, en este caso el pueblo nagbe, nosotros estamos acostumbrados a vivir con nuestra naturaleza, con nuestra libertad tradicional, cultural, y entonces a nosotros como que se nos está dando es otra nueva vida a la cual no estamos adaptados. Esto es cosa que quería decirle porque hay mucha explicación sobre esto, pero esto nada más le digo y agradezco la atención y la disculpa.
And it's particularly comforting because I'm indigenous and I live with my territory. It's very important. So I'm very concerned about this, and I do appreciate your consideration for having me here, and would like to hear your response.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and one.
I will very briefly, thank you.
Solamente para decirle, ya como digo, es tantas cosas, pero solo para decirle que no se hizo la consulta y no se tomó en cuenta la población nagbe, en este caso el estudio que permite este proyecto lo es claro, donde dice que no encontraron ninguna etnia indígena, y con todo este estudio que se le da la certificación a Barro Blanco del MDL.
There's really a lot I could say about this, but one more thing I wanted to mention is that there was no consultation whatsoever with the indigenous communities. The evaluation of environmental impacts did not include any in our indigenous territories, and the consultation did not come to our community or include anyone from the nagbe people. That was it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. As we talk about the larger issue of how we take care of stakeholder consultation in the CDM review. I think I have Senegal again. Is it so? Yes, Senegal, please.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. In my point of view, the verification of the stakeholder consultation is already conducted during the validation phase process. Because in one hand, the validator has to state that the local stakeholder consultation has been conducted and the comments have been taken into account by the project developer. And in the other hand, he has also to verify that the laws and the regulations within the country have been met within the process, the project. And the DNA, before providing the letter of approval, have also to verify if the sustainable development rules and criteria have been respected by the project developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. I see Kenya, and then I think I saw a lady in the very, very back, and then I see a gentleman a little bit in the front of the back. All right. So Kenya, please.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I recognize the need to simplify the methodology, and listening to some speakers before. The inputs, if I can listen the way they are there, from 3 to 5 are of interest. I know Burkina Faso has said that if we could have examples of where respect for human rights has been violated, it would help, because unless we have that and know it has enough frequency to warrant intervention, then trying to develop clear guidelines how to undertake stakeholder consultation will really make this a little more complicated, especially recognizing the diversity that is associated with the item 4, post-party laws and regulations. So, likely a bit of a higher-handedness to try and do that unless we have enough examples to show that this warrants intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. I have noted both Burkina Faso and Kenya's question around a little bit more clarification, perhaps, on this input that has come in with regards to respecting international human rights, and perhaps the proponents who have put forward this as one of the inputs to the CDM review can speak to this and clarify the thinking behind, if you can take this one later. I saw somebody waving at the very back of the room, and they are not waving anymore. Then I will take the gentleman. I will take from Wuppertal Institute, please. Please, from the gentleman here in the front. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought there was somebody else first. Yeah, just to give another example of where CDM projects are involved in human rights violations is the Aguan project in Honduras, which is a palm project, and where the raw material is sourced from plantations which are involved in very violent human rights violations and land conflicts, in the course of which over 50 people have been killed. And not only, and these killings have been conducted in conjunction by private security forces of the project participants and state government security forces. And it has been confirmed by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights that the state has been complicit in these killings, and that none of these killings have been investigated properly by the state authorities. So I guess this really raises the question, if the rule is that everything is up to the host country, then what recourse do the local stakeholders have if the host country government itself is the one who's committing to human rights violations?
Thank you for that comment, and I think I see in the red seat, yes? The secretary tells me I'm colorblind. It's orange.
You're right, I didn't know what I was wearing. Okay. Hi, my name is Alyssa Johl. I'm from the Center for International Environmental Law. We are among one of the groups that have submitted or made submissions on the international human rights issues. And I think you've now heard from a few speakers who have addressed some of the questions raised about where there are human rights impacts as a result of CDM projects. And I would just like to revisit a comment that was made by one of the speakers that in Doha there was language, in many other sessions preceding Doha, language was introduced calling for international guidance on how to conduct stakeholder consultations. And as usual, this was highly contested, but there was great support among many parties in the room to move forward with this language, but there was also significant opposition, and it was struck down because of it. But I would just urge you all to reconsider this, because as we're seeing from these case studies in Honduras, in Panama, in other places around the world, the existing model is not working. So while some countries have developed detailed guidance and criteria for how to conduct stakeholder consultations, many others have not. And this results in inadequate and ineffective stakeholder consultation processes. I'd also like to mention, I think it's essential that there must be a means to address concerns raised at other stages of the project cycle, so not just during the registration stage. I believe that it was mentioned that this would introduce levels of risk to investors. And while that may be true, I'd like to counter that by saying it introduces a level of risk to the lives and the livelihoods of the project-affected peoples and communities. And to me, that's what the meaning of sustainable development is all about. So this is not a novel concept. Regardless of what we call it, an accountability mechanism, a grievance mechanism, compliance review, this exists in many forms in other development finance mechanisms. The UNDP is in the process of developing a compliance review and grievance mechanisms that could easily apply to this context. And as we know in the World Bank, there's a very robust and independent compliance review mechanism that has been incredibly successful over the past 10, 20 years. So I'd like to urge you to consider these issues.
Thank you very much, and thank you also speaking to the issue of the communications with the board, which we have packaged together during this part of the session. I recognize Australia, please.
Thank you very much. I was just going to actually refer to what the previous speaker had mentioned, and once again ask Mr. Reddy. I'm sorry I'm asking you all these questions, but you're a major CDM investor, so it's good to have someone here who was involved at the World Bank. But yes, I refer to the World Bank systems it has in place for stakeholder consultations for all of its projects, regardless of whether they're CDM or not. And perhaps you could reflect on useful processes that you find there.
Yes, perhaps you can respond right away. Thank you.
Yeah, we have robust safeguard policies that we apply to all the programs that the World Bank is involved in. So that provides a frame of reference, and also it's an agreement with the local government and local authorities that these safeguard policies would be implemented. And then we conduct, and every step of the safeguard policies will need to be complied. It needs to be web hosted. We do public information documentation at every level. So, and we have learned quite a lot from that process. And one lesson also we learned is that it involves some additional cost that the bank we invest to do that process to ensure that all the parties who are involved in whatever development program are heard, and then their views are captured. So it's nice. I think we need to evolve some kind of a mechanism. How cost effective that is, so that we capture the local relevance of that program and the views of the community. So it's a balance, fine balance between how frivolous complaints could be avoided, so that the projects have certain credible run. But at the same time, the legitimate concerns of the community should not be excluded. So it's all the more every day we learn through that. There is no perfect kind of a mechanism. So I think the best way would be to develop these guidelines, building on taking some of the lessons from the World Bank procedures, taking some of the best practices that are implemented in other organizations, that some guidance could be provided to DNAs to put in place how, as EU mentioned, how this process needs to be installed at the DNA level, and then transparently it needs to be monitored. And whether the same at the verification should a project be subject to again stakeholder consultation is again if there are some complaints that there have been some abuses or violations, of course that's the DNA's duty to or at least moral obligation to look into those things to at least verify whether before the verification of the project to see those comments are laid.
Thank you very much, Roman. Are there any other views on this issue? See one hand in the back, please, and then I will see if Gareth would like to say a few words, and then I will try to sum up. Okay, two short comments from the back, please, and then, yes.
Hi, it's Abby Rubinstein from Earthjustice, this time speaking myself. I just wanted to add that following up on all of the comments we've just heard about human rights violations and projects, there needs to be a process, some sort of way to suspend the project while the allegations are being investigated. It doesn't make sense to just say that, sometimes human rights violations occur. There needs to be some means to investigate what's going on, and then while that's happening, to call for a suspension of the project until we can determine that the requirements are being met.
Thank you. And Karl, please.
Thank you. Just to add on the last point on this, I think much has been said, but there were some initiatives adopted trying to address this, and we see that none of them have been sufficient. So I think one really important point is now whatever's been done has to be really meaningful. For example, the board has adopted a amendment for direct communication with the board, and we have stopped sending letters because the answers that we received were, thank you for your letter, but it's not the mandate of this forum, and you cannot send us any project-specific comments, but it did not give us an alternative option, so basically it just asked us to stop sending letters. And I think any other sort of mechanism should be considerate of all these problems we have pointed out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gareth, please, if you would like to add something.
Thank you very much. I just had two more comments. Just sort of listening to the discussion on stakeholder consultation, it seems to me there's a question as to whether or not the parties are expecting stakeholder consultation for CDM to go beyond existing host country regulations. And I think that's something you might want to consider, whether you expect project developers under the CDM to exceed host country regulations, and if so, to what extent, or do you simply accept that they follow the host country regulations? And that might be something that might help you come to a decision on that. And I'd only just like to point out briefly, regarding the very last point, it may not seem significant, but members of the Project Developer Forum, we have 52 members. They're all required to sign a code of conduct. It's not the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but we do have a code of conduct, and I think our members do set some store by that, and I think that might well be an interesting avenue to explore. Before we move on, I wonder if we could look at the second slide as well, because I've forgotten the points that were there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Gareth, and thank you for being so engaged on this topic. I think we still have a lot to speak around on this area. One thing I heard was there seems to be some sort of general direction that we do need to improve the current stakeholder consultation process and how we validate the comments around this. And I think there were questions around, however, whether or not these consultations should be running throughout the entire life cycle of the project, and both benefits and challenges to this were pointed at. There was some discussion around minimum guidance, perhaps to the DNA around stakeholder consultation. There was an idea around perhaps a template that can be used. But of course, I have heard during the whole discussion kind of balance between the international guidance and around stakeholder consultation and how you make this compatible with national rules on local stakeholder consultation. And this was apparent also in the discussions today. We also heard a number of interventions around human rights, and I thought it was also interesting to hear some examples on how where we can learn lessons from other organizations around safeguard policies and grievance mechanisms and so on. And I hope that this conversation gave you some food for thought on the continued conversation we will have on stakeholder consultation and communications with the board. Thank you. And I think we will move on to the next point, which some of the comments made already with regards to consultations touched upon this subject on sustainable development co-benefits, and I will ask the Secretariat to make a short presentation on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Weni. On the issue of the sustainable development co-benefits, what's available under the current modalities and procedures of CDM is that the DOE in validating such applications to confirm whether it assists the host party in achieving the sustainable development. In the practice, what we observe is that the CP describes the sustainable development benefits in the PDD, but this particular information not validated, and in a lot of, if not all of the cases, that host party LOA includes also the statement that the project would assist in the achievement of the sustainable development of the host party. So the inputs related to this issue make a suggestion to make the monitoring, reporting, and verification of sustainable development aspects mandatory during the entire project cycle. So again, it's not during the validation, but also throughout the project implementation. Another suggestion is to make the use of the sustainable development tool, which was adopted by the board at BD70, mandatory. Also, there are some inputs that suggest to establish an international sustainable development criteria that would apply in addition to the national criteria set by the host party. In opposite to the second suggestion is to make the use of the sustainable development tool remain voluntary, but it should be, and it should not be monitored and verified at the international level. And finally, that another suggestion is to promote the development of the project with high co-benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, one of the objectives of the CDM is to promote sustainable development, and I think one of the questions here is, as we are here with the CDM review of the modalities and procedures, there's a question on whether the modalities and procedures can assist parties in achieving this goal. But before I open the floor, perhaps I can ask Gareth and Roma if you'd like to make a few comments on the issue of sustainable development. Please, Gareth.
Thank you very much. Well, I think this can also be quite a contentious issue. We know that ever since 1992, sustainable development has been something that has not been defined, because it's not really possible to decide or to define what is sustainable in one context and not in another. So it has remained as the prerogative of the host country to decide and to declare whether project activities contribute to their view of sustainable development. And that is, as we see it, is communicated through the host country letter of approval. Then we have the development of the voluntary tool, which helps PPs to provide more information about those sustainable development benefits. And we have some other examples of some of the sort of the competing standards. For example, the gold standard, I'm sure goes significantly further in asking projects to identify both positive and negative impacts and to monitor those. So there are other examples of standards that have gone further. However, the costs of the verification, particularly of some things, for example, air quality, and so it's not an easy thing to monitor in an objective manner. These costs can become quite significant, and then the verification becomes an additional burden. We also see emphasis on the identification of projects that do no harm, which is another way of recognizing that projects are largely beneficial, but simply making sure that they don't have any significant negative impacts. So that's the kind of a flip side of looking at sustainable development benefits. So there's, I think, quite a lot of history of discussion and debate amongst the parties on this topic, and some experience from other areas that we could also look at to further inform the discussion.